Okay. Well, good morning. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar on the power of personality assessments. I'd like to start by introducing our panelists and thanking them for being here. Our first panelist is Mr. Joel Barkman, who's founder and CEO of Golden Rule Builders. Joel first built the first Golden Rule home in Fauquier County over 25 years ago, and since then he has continued to build a reputation on quality, service, and community. Recently, he was named the 2009 Builder of the Year by Northern Virginia Building Industry Association, and in 2010, he was Business Person of the Year by the Fauquier County Chamber of Commerce. Joel's been a great friend and partner to us here in Workforce Solutions, and we're so pleased for him to be on our panel. Our second panelist is Jeannie Ann Clark, who is our very own Vice President of Workforce Development here at LSCC. She has a diverse background in many industries, including manufacturing, IT, and education. She earned her bachelor's degree from James Madison University and a master's from Old Dominion University, and is a DDI certified instructor and has a wealth of knowledge on Myers-Briggs personality types, and we're very excited that she is part of our panel today as well. And last but certainly not least is Deborah Taylor. She is the current president and CEO of a multi-million-dollar nonprofit organization located right here in Winchester, Virginia, that serves adults with disabilities. In every role of her career, Deb has focused on people. She's coached, counseled, and developed individuals to reach their highest potential. Her work experience spans industries such as manufacturing, distribution, logistics, retail, food service, and operations. She holds a bachelor's degree in business and has been certified as a human resource professional with a black belt in Lean Six Sigma processes. And oh, by the way, she is an adjunct instructor for us at Workforce Solutions. So we are just so pleased at this incredible panel that we have with us today. And my name is Jaleese Ballin. I'm the corporate training product developer. I will be your moderator or MC, if you will, today. Before we dive right in to the discussion, we thought it might be prudent to just share a little bit of a background of the two particular personality assessments we're going to be talking about today, in case you're not familiar with them. So the first of those is called DISC. And DISC is a personal assessment tool that's used by more than 1 million people every year to help improve teamwork, communication, and productivity in the workplace. DISC, as you can guess by looking at your screen, is an acronym that stands for the 4 main personality profiles described in the DISC model, which are dominance, influence, steadiness, and conscientiousness. And our panelists are going to explain a little bit more about what all of that means. But then, in case you're not familiar, we're also going to be talking a little bit about the Myers-Briggs personality type. So this is a self-report inventory designed to identify a person's personality type, strengths, and preferences. The questionnaire was developed by Isabel Myers and her mother, Catherine Briggs, based on their work with Carl Jung's theory of personality types. And based on the answers to the questions on the inventory, people are identified as having one of 16 personality types. The goal of the MBTI is to allow respondents to further explore and understand their own personalities, including their likes, dislikes, strengths, weaknesses, possible career preferences, and compatibility with other people. So what I'd like to do is begin with turning this over to our fantastic panel. And Deb, I think we'll start with you. Could you share a little bit more with us about what is DISC and how has this impacted you in your career and the teams that you've worked with?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. And thank you for the intro, Jaleese, and the background. So as you can see from the screen, DISC is, it's very simple in a way, but very complicated in depth. So DISC was actually created by a psychologist in 1928, William Marston. And then in 1940, the first assessment was created by an industrial psychologist, Walter Clark. There was a book written by Marston. I did a little bit of research myself prior to today's meeting, and I didn't realize this, but there was a book created that's called The Emotions of Normal People in 1928. So I'm going to go out and buy that book and look it up. but the assessment tool in of itself, I was trained to instruct DISC early on in my career, and I have taken the assessment multiple times myself. And it's really predicated on the behavior and looking at behavior, not necessarily personality traits, but it pulls the personality traits and measures how the personality traits translate to human behavior. So it's more observable. There is some predictability in the model. The research that I found shows that there's low validity, but very high reliability. And I completely agree with that. So DISC, whether you're dominant, influencing, steadiness, and conscientious, those are the 4 quadrants that the DISC tool measures. So it's a 24 to 30 question assessment that hones in on how your emotions play into your behavior, motivating factors in your behavior, and also how you respond under stress, how you would, quote, normally behave versus how you might behave under stress. And whenever we go through the instruction portion of DISC, we group folks to understand how they can observe other behaviors and other individuals that helps them work alongside with their team members, and be able to predict, especially if you're going into a high intense conversation or a conflict with another individual, and you can look at this model and you can pull out of this model in these 4 quadrants what could be predictable for how the person may respond, how the person may respond to a change, how the person may respond to stress, and how the person may respond to just the environment change as we all go through environment changes. And then as a manager or supervisor, be able to work alongside that person to understand, once you understand that, once you can predict that, how to approach the person. So we give some tools and tactics on the best way to approach and communicate. So the tool is a communication tool. Yes, it's a personality assessment, but I like to refer to it more as a behavior assessment, because it really is a predictor of behavior as we take a deep dive into the content of what each quadrant means to be dominant or influencing versus steadiness and conscientious. So that's my kind of starting point and recap for, without teaching a full class today. Really talking about it, because it does excite me and I have a passion for it. I've used it across, I've taken it from organization to organization as my career has progressed, and I've seen change in people because of the way that the information being provided to them hones in on their own behavior and how they see themselves and how they see other people.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And we feel your passion. And I think that what you shared is very much the same feedback that we have received from partners in the community who use DISC. And I know, Joel, at Golden Rule, you've been using DISC for many years there, and you've seen a lot of great results. Do you want to share some of the impact that you've seen in applying the DISC assessment there at Golden Rule?
Sure, Jalise, thank you. And good morning to everyone. I think Deb did a good job in kind of the intro and defining a little bit what DISC is all about. But I would have to say that this has been a real game changer for us here at Golden Rule Builders, who we implement this for anyone we hire. And it's really been a game changer for us. We discovered it over 20 years ago when I started doing it for myself, and I realized, wow, I have some really good strengths, and then I have some things that are really, really weak. So the first thing I did is I hired somebody to kind of offset me in another quadrant, because you tend to try to surround yourself with people like yourself, which is really harmful to your organization. So I'm a high D at work, I'm high I outside of work. And so it really changes how you view tasks and how you view people. And so you need the other quadrants to really create a nice, smooth environment to work and live in. So it leaves some real gaps when you don't have those other people in. So each one just has some real critical strengths and and then also some weaknesses. So I think just having your team recognize where they are and the strengths they have just really helps everyone to be a great team player. And just realizing, what do I bring to the team that's valuable? And that's, and I think naturally then we respect each other's strengths, and we kind of tend to overlook their weaknesses a little easier. And we can joke about our weaknesses because we often think we can hide our weaknesses, which we really can't. Everybody knows them. And this just kind of brings everything and puts it on the table, and we can just function as a team, kind of as a family. So everybody here at Golden Rule Builders knows their profile, they knows where their dot is. Actually, Deb taught our class the last time, did a fantastic job, and we really appreciate that. So we kind of wear it with pride, our own one, even though we tend to often think of the weaknesses rather than the strengths, which is not the right way to look at it. So some of the quadrants feel very much like you're opposed to the other quadrants, when in actuality it's just bringing another strength in and how things are viewed. And I have to say that one of the first times we did this as a company, a few days later, one of my employees came to me and he just really thanked me for this course. He said, "I've just never felt so valued as I do now." And that was a great testimony, because we look at, we're not only trying to make our employees better for the company, but we're trying to make them better husbands, wives, children, in the community, wherever they're involved in their leadership. And he just said, "This is the first time I really felt valued." And he said, "I went home and my wife and I talked about it, and now we really understand each other." And I just, we were always on edge with each other, couldn't understand because they're very different profiles. And so he said, "Now we understand each other. Now we can work from our strengths." So I just thought that was a great testimonial, and we hear that kind of thing a lot when we allow that to happen. So I just like to put a plug in for Lord Fairfax. There's been, I guess now it's no longer Lord Fairfax, right? So, but but they have been amazing how they have really come alongside our company. And not just in the disc, but in a lot of other ways of training our people. So thank you.
Well, thank you for that, Joel. And just so everyone knows, we did not pay him for that plug, but we appreciate it just the same. Joel, so you said something that that employee coming to you and talking about, feeling valued. That's just so important. And I think that's probably what every leader would want to hear. And I know Jeannie Ann, even though at Workforce we use the MBTI assessment, some of what Joel and Deb shared, we have seen similar results, such as people wearing their types with pride and feeling seen and heard and valued. Would you mind sharing a little bit about what MBTI is, first of all, and how we're using it at Workforce?
Yeah, sure. It'd be my pleasure. Thank you. And good morning, everyone. It's great to see everyone here and to have an opportunity to share these best practices and to learn from one another. We love this. As Jaleese mentioned, MBTI is the instrument we choose to use. It's actually probably the oldest industrial psychology instrument out there. It's been around, the body of work itself has been around for 100 years. However, it really took traction right before World War II. It was a belief that the knowledge of personality preferences would help women who were entering the workforce to support the industrial production while the men were fighting World War II, that the instrument type would help them to know what their personalities would lead best to in supporting the types of occupations they went into during World War II. So that's where it really leaped over into being used into the workforce. That was the dawn of it. Kind of cool little bit of history. I remember taking it in college and like, oh, that's interesting. It definitely helped me to understand my preferences better and how to best use the gifts and talents that I had to be able to lock into a career, and to also, be aware that there are 16 different types of combinations. So it helped with that emotional intelligence piece. But that it was an individual gear. It didn't really jump the chasm to be able to see organizationally how to use it. And that lens really opened up itself when Patrick Leonché's body of work came out. Don't know, he's wonderful organizational development individual. He's wrote a ton of books, but the one that really, as you can see, it's all marked up and posted up is The 5 Dysfunctions of Teams. Was my first taste of being introduced to his body of work. I have a huge passion for organization development, organizational cohesiveness. And in his 5 Dysfunctions of Teams, the very first level that he addresses is trust in teams. And he proposed using industrial psychology instrument. He himself promoted the Myers-Briggs type indicator to do this, to really establish that first level of organizational trust. And that is where the leap went from seeing it as a tool to understand your preferences and temperaments to leveraging it as a tool so your organization can see it amongst the different players on your team. And instead of when stress hits, conflict hits, communication misfires hit, instead of this, oh, that person drives me nuts, or oh, I don't know why this person is always sabotaging me, you're totally able to see it from a different lens and to be able to more positively address it. There was an example that happened in our organization yesterday that we went back and said, oh my gosh, if you look at their MBTI, you can see exactly why this happened. So instead of getting frustrated about it, we actually laughed about it and had a good little, had an opportunity because of that emotional intelligence injected into the organization using it, we were able to capitalize on it. But a couple of just super high level examples of how we use it in our organization. When someone is onboarded, we do their MBTI right away, and then we have the individual validate that that is their preference. We use the instrument type talk at work, and that is how personality types determine success on the job and success in teams. So we have this wonderful resource, but then let me just pull back some layers of the onion and give you some great examples of why I love this instrument particularly. The first thing that really attracted me to it, besides Patrick Leonché's work, was how incredibly important it is for E's and I's to know each other and understand each other, extroverts and introverts. So at the time when we first started using this instrument, we had a lot of introverts on the team. However, the handful of extroverts were always driving the conversation, always doing the brainstorming, always just the ones who were controlling, if you will, the conversations and or the agendas. And so, and in a way, that sounds like, oh, the E's were having their way all the time. Well, the E's were actually extroverts were getting frustrated with the introverts because they felt like the introverts would never participate. They would never put themselves out there to offer ideas. They would never contribute. The I's were frustrated with the E's because they would never shut up. They would never let them get a word in edgewise. So in understanding and using the Myers-Briggs to actually put that into a framework, it became apparent that I's need an opportunity to internally process the what ifs, the how to's, the where are we goings. And when they speak, they have thought through to a significant amount of degree what they're about to say, whereas extroverts actually think out loud. So extroverts will be brainstorming out loud, introverts are brainstorming internally. So as extroverts start just spewing off all these ideas, they're exhausting the introverts. So one of the things that we quickly adopted in our organization was our first strategy tools is that 4 days before staff meeting, 4 days in advance, we publish the agenda. So everyone knows exactly what's going to be talked about at the Thursday meeting. And we ask everyone to come prepared to be engaged. It's not okay to not engage. But if you want everyone to engage, you've got to give them the tools to do it. So that was one of the really quick wins, if you will, that we got from the extrovert introvert being able to capitalize on that. Of our most recent MBTI workshop, we did one in January with our team, and a follow-up again just last month, is you will recognize these personalities in your organization. We have individuals that love to get into the details, tell you all the details, tell you how the plane was built, what altitude it could cruise at, how fast it could go, how much fuel it can take to get across the ocean, and all the mechanisms that it takes to fly the airplane. We have folks in our organization that just want you to land the airplane. They do not care how it's built, how it gets across the ocean, how much fuel mileage it gets. So recently, so in other words, folks who need a lot of detail, they need it. They need it to operate. And folks who could care less about the detail, give me the bottom line. So we obviously, in our group of just over 20, have both types. So in our last Myers-Briggs workshop, we embraced the concept bluff, bottom line up first. So at the top of an email, at the beginning of a discussion, there is the land the plane headline. And then if you want all the other details, then the supporting pieces in the email have all the details if you want to read them. But bottom line up first is that headline, so that you could quickly take that information, assimilate it, process it, use it as you want. And by the way, if you want the rest of the details, go ahead and read the rest of the email. But you better be paying attention to that top sentence. So that is one of the more recent examples just in the last couple of weeks of how we use Myers-Briggs to better communicate on our team.
I love that, that Jeannie, and that you've shared that doing these personality types is not just about creating an awareness of where your strengths and weaknesses are or how your colleagues are different, but you can use them as a tool to actually improve communication and address conflict. And Joel, I'm curious how you all have used DISC at Golden Rule to do the same, address issues of conflict or improve communication and collaboration.
Well, yeah, it is definitely a great tool to use for communication. And one of the areas that we find is predictability. And I think Jeananne talked about that some. You really actually kind of know how people are going to respond if you know their quadrant, because that's how they think. And so you want to address it back to them also in that quadrant, so it just helps in that communication line when you know how people think and where they're coming from. It helps you to be able to explain it on a different level than you would have explained it otherwise, because you explain it through your own glasses. So we also use that at our each annual evaluation, because it's just a good reminder of, here's why I have some of these tendencies. Here's some of these weak areas that could maybe work on. Here's some of the strengths you could really plug in a lot more because you have these strengths. And so we make them a part of our annual evaluation. We go over them, and they're just really helpful to use in that time as well. And then for managers to, when they're dealing with issues, maybe with some of their people, it's just invaluable to go over this first, and you understand where they're coming from. And oftentimes it's like, oh, well, they're coming from here, so it's actually not as big a problem as you really think it might be. Like a high D might think the S, they're a little slow. They like to talk about the cats and the dogs and all the friendships, and a high D just wants things done. Just get it done. Why are you walking so slow? Just those kind of things. But when you understand them, and then you understand that I'm the one that's causing the problem, not them.
Yeah, it's great having that awareness, because when you stop and think about that and the differences between you and your colleagues, it almost diffuses any conflict before it begins, because you understand where they're coming from.
That's correct. Yeah.
I love that. And Deb, I know you were sharing with us earlier this week some really great experiences that you've seen yourself about how the power of using DISC and personality assessments has helped with collaboration, with growing leaders, and even with retention. Do you have some of that story you would mind sharing with our group here?
Sure. So early on in my career as a training professional, I'll say, and my career's taken many turns, but we utilized DISC and we set it up as part of a management development plan. So it was week-long training. We set up camps, offsite camps actually, and created a development plan around multiple competencies. So we created a competency wheel, and DISC was part of the training that we went through as we trained managers. And these were managers that hadn't come together before, but worked with their teams, worked with their supervisors, and multiple levels of management to understand. And so we put them together to learn how their primary behavioral type could be misinterpreted, if you will, at times, what their strengths were, to what Joel was talking about, where their strengths lie and where their weaknesses lie. And if you put a group of Ds together to work on a project, you're really not going to get too far, because they're all going to try to take over, right? Is are just going to like talk and talk and talk and talk. And then the S's will just be, they will jump in and they will support and they will do it. And the C's that are conscientious will like overanalyze it, right? So you're getting into these quadrants, and that happened at camp. And I'll tell you a quick story. We did an activity where we built a helicopter out of these pieces, and you could buy it online actually, but it's a team building exercise. You build these little helicopters, and I intentionally took a part away from the Ds so they couldn't finish their helicopter. And I wanted them to learn to come together. So the premise was that the I's were building their helicopter, the S's and the C's, but they all had to build it together to get the final product, because you need all of those types to come together, to work together, to offset each other's, strengths and weaknesses. So it was an awesome learning opportunity, I feel. I was the one that knew, so I was kind of laughing in the background, but thanks, Jeannie Ann. But, as far as retention goes, my former training director, I'd left the company, but my former training director contacted me a few years after and said that he had measured the retention of those managers that went through those camps and that we focused on those development plans with, and that there were so many people that stayed with the organization and were able to grow their own leaders under them, supervisors, and promote and get promoted from within. And I will tell you that the company's name is Sheets. I worked for Sheets for 16 years. And it's interesting because my daughter is a manager there now, and she's running a sheet store in Fredericksburg, TMI, but her regional vice president I trained when I was with the company. And there are multiple people that I can go across the company in multiple states and know that I was part of their success and development because of the retention that these camps and that training brought to the organization at the time. So I feel really good about that. And that's why I continue, regardless of what company I'm in, I will train it myself. Or, I have outsourced, it's kind of difficult to be the leader to train. So I have outsourced specifically this to another consultant to come in here at NW Works to train it to my leadership team. But then I'm able to reinforce it as I kind of move along, But really good success with the instrument. And I would, put a plug in for LSCC for bringing this to light, because I really think that it's an invaluable tool similar to Myers-Briggs that is memorable, easy to remember, easy to just make that connection with, you're a DEI, S or C, and we reinforce in the course, you can't use your letter, your designation as an excuse either. Okay. Yeah. So it's learning about yourself, but really learning about others and how to manage and communicate with others. As Joel said, it's really an intro look at yourself and your own behaviors and how they may impact others as you communicate.
Yeah. And Deb, I appreciate you sharing that story with us, because it's just so powerful to understand not just the short-term benefits of doing the assessments and the awareness, but how fantastic that Sheets measured out years later to see what the long-term retention benefits were. I mean, that's just such powerful data to have that we don't often get insight into.
Yep.
And Jeannie Ann, I know within Workforce Solutions, there's been a lot of things that you've put into place to also not just help the team understand one another, but to grow and develop as professionals, as individuals, and even did some partner pairing. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Sure, absolutely. So to Deb's point, to really be able to use this tool in the matter of longevity, that you could capitalize on it, you can't, it's not a one and done thing. You have to keep recreating it into the culture, clearly as Sheets has done and done a fantastic job with. So as I mentioned earlier, we adopted it back in 2010 when we adopted Patrick Leonche's The 5 Dysfunctions of Teams. But obviously since 2010, we don't have the same staff here. We've obviously, like everyone else, had turnover and have new folks come on and new folks move on. So the challenge is to keep it fresh and real without also hitting the repeat button over and over and over again. So we do make a commitment anytime anyone's onboarded to do the MBTI and then to introduce them to the team through the lens of the MBTI. But then also at least once every 2 years, we hit the reset button and redo an MBTI workshop with someone outside of our organization, because I think it was Debbie said, it's really hard to be a disciple in your own nation and do this for your own folks. So we too use an outside facilitator to do that with us. And so this last time that we did it in January, what we like to do is let some time settle in to marinate and start using the tool. So we had about 3 different pieces of homework from our January workshop. One of them was to have MBTI mentor duos. And what we looked at is combining the polar opposites together as mentor duos. And the other thing that we looked at in connecting the 2 mentors together is folks who have been with the organization more than 5 years, folks who have been with the organization less than 5 years. So some of that corporate storytelling could take effect with those mentor duos, and that you're able to learn from one another, sand those rough edges in being able to have a mentor who is the opposite of you, as Joel was saying, so that you have that balance in the organization and also that awareness and that structure in the organization. It just so happens that this time around, my mentor duo was Jaleese, which was awesome. So we went off site, we shared a great lunch together, just shared, some areas that are a challenge for me personally as a leader. And I asked for her insight and her advice as far as how to better connect and make that a better process for our organization. So it was awesome to get her input and her feedback on that advice. But then that was replicated through our organization. Another way that we look at how to use that and capitalize on that, there's someone else that's on this call that their Myers-Briggs type preference coins them the accidental mess maker. And so what that means is their heart is in it for all the right reasons to reach out and help folks in the organization. And then inadvertently, there's a couple of car pileups behind them because they crashed into their bumper. And the collateral damage by crossing over the lanes. And so we've got 2 accidental mess makers per se in the organization. Again, very endearing term because the heart of service is that they're trying to help. But by accident, it causes some collateral damage. So we have someone who professionally has a lot of years of experience to recognize that and has the emotional intelligence to really quickly adapt and be able to use that much more effectively. And we have someone a little earlier in their career that doesn't yet recognize a whoops, I have a tendency for this to happen. So the opportunity is to connect those 2 accidental mess makers together. I know you're thinking, oh my gosh, now we're going to have like I-81 shut down because we're going to close both lanes of 81 if we put those 2 together. But no, quite the opposite. The other individual is further along in their career and their emotional maturity level that they have a way of recognizing it and actually using it in the course of the conversation or in the course of the issue to say, here's what's happening, here's what we're trying to do, but you have to be sensitive and aware that this can accidentally cause . So it's great to use polar opposites. It's great to use folks who are the same, but at different levels of their career or in different levels of their cycle, if you will. So it's been super helpful in having that identified and knowing how to cultivate that to help your organization and your culture.
Yeah, and I just want to say, as Jeannie Ann's MBTI opposite partner or pair, if you have the vice president of your organization sit down with you at lunch and say, what could I be doing better, differently? That's a really, really powerful thing. And it just shows the care for teamwork, for collaboration, and for listening. So I just have to give kudos to Jeannie Ann for her vulnerability and not only facilitating these workshops, but participating and being a part of it and looking for opportunities to learn. So I'll stop my plug now, but it's really a powerful thing. But Jeannie, I thank you for sharing that. And I have the benefit of working with you and seeing these examples you've talked about play out. But Joel, I want to ask you, because you mentioned there are a couple of things you said that stood out to me in terms of how you all are using DISC at Golden Rule to help with employee development. And you talked about how you use it during onboarding and also in their annual review process. And I'd love to hear more about how you're incorporating DISC as a personality assessment into that employee growth and development from hire through to eval.
Yeah, so it is a very much a basis that we use. We give the employee, first of all, an hour's time with a coach for the coach, and the coach is off site, so he will talk, and often the employee is like, wow, how does he know me so well? Because he never met me. And yet, you do know that through reading the profile. And so they really buy in early, realizing that this is a very strong tool that I can use to better myself and to collaborate with those around me. And then we have a mentor program as well, in where we saddle people together, and the mentor, is very familiar with the profiling, so they can help others the way they want to be helped. So it's all the way through. It's just I think a great tool, and hopefully when they go home, they help. It helps in their family life, because that's where the rubber meets the road, and we live close together, and are a really valuable tool for there as well.
Well, and I appreciate that so much that you've touched on that a couple of times, and how the power of doing these personality assessments and creating that awareness and improving communication with folks who are different from us, the benefits of that extend well beyond just within the organization, but into our homes and our communities as well. And what a valuable gift to be able to give employees to have that insight that they can expand to other parts of their world.
Right. Yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
And Deb, you said something in the beginning that I want to come back to. When you were first talking about DISC, you mentioned how it's been a helpful tool through environmental change. And certainly the last 2 years have presented us with quite a lot of change and needing to pivot. And I'm just curious how you have seen that awareness level within your leadership team benefit through the change and the challenges that we've all seen navigating this pandemic.
Sure. So, thanks for the question, and I'll make this. I'll try to make this as quick as possible. But I think that for my team in particular, and I have a great leadership team coming into the organization right before COVID hit. Really rocked our world here, because we are in health and human services, and we are assisting individuals with disabilities that could have higher than most be susceptible to COVID and what it brings. So the amount of stress and change that we've gone through from an environmental perspective over the last couple of years, the fact that we were able to take the time and focus on DISC and our soft skills, and being able to work together and learn how to work together better through change and understand what someone else may be feeling because of their style. And for myself as a leader, knowing their styles and being able to lead to that. Hard skills are I'm not going to say easy to teach, but you can, everybody can learn a hard skill pretty easy. You train someone how to do something, you repeat the task, and you can focus on those hard skills. But soft skills are difficult to navigate. And when you're navigating the waters through the impact of COVID and the shutdown of an organization and the high level of stress that we've gone through, it's easy to really be negative versus positive. And being able to understand where someone is coming from, I really feel for myself as the CEO, but also for my leadership team, it's helped the team understand their teams even better. Even though we haven't taken the DISC instrument, and that's my next step, is to take it down to the mid-level manager level below my leadership team. I really feel as though the instrument is easy enough to learn and apply based on a few simple questions, and empower them to be able to address situations emotionally with the staff in a way that they wouldn't have been able to before. We probably would have had more missteps and more conflict between styles had there not been an awareness as we've gone through the environmental change that we've gone through. And I will say we've come out 100% better on the other side. And I really feel as though understanding each other in this way has helped the team grow as individuals and help the organization too.
Wow, that's really, really powerful. And how fantastic that your team already had that foundation built to help weather the storm of the last 2 years. Well, I want to make sure we have time to open up for questions from the folks who are on the call. But before we do that, I have one last question for each of you. If there was just one thing that you could only share one thing with everybody listening on the power of doing personality assessments and the benefits that you've seen, what would that one thing be? And Deb, will just stay with you. What was that one thing you'd like to impart to everyone about the power of personality assessments in the workplace?
Just do it.
Just do it.
I'm gonna go with the night thing. I'm sorry, that didn't sound very professional, but the power is the growth in your team, and the level of communication that can occur with your team that brings that awareness to each of the quadrants, each of the styles. Don't get hung up on it being an assessment test. It's not. And, no one good style is better than another. We all have inherent traits that come out in different ways. So for me, I would say the power is the growth and enhanced communication.
Love it. And I love the just do it, because that's that bottom line up first that Jeannie Ann was talking about. Just do it.
Sorry, my D came out a little bit there.
That's perfect. Jeannie Ann, I'm going to ask you the same question. What's the one thing you would like to share and tell people?
I would definitely say the tolerance and grace that it builds into your corporate culture. Without it, you would not stumble upon the opportunities to have conversations that you would have no reason for having conversations otherwise. Quick example, again, with that tolerance and grace, you guys know these folks in your organization. You have folks that answer emails nights, weekends, 3 in the morning. you name it. And you have folks that you know in your organization do not look at their emails at night, do not look at their emails at the weekend. And that causes an unspoken stress in the organization that you probably would have no reason for talking about. MBTI pulls that out. And I'll give you an example of how it makes grace and tolerance happen in the organization. Pretty typically, someone who is answering those emails on weekends and evenings is a D in the DISC world. But that is their way of handling their anxiety and stress internally. It has nothing to do with a jump on a demand to force onto someone who is not answering their emails on nights and on weekends. And so the MBTI helps you see that about one another, that just because Jeannie Ann is answering that Saturday at 10 o'clock doesn't mean Deb has to answer that Saturday at 10:30. Jeannie Ann can't control her stress unless she's checking her emails throughout the evenings and the weekends, but that doesn't imply an expectation on Deb to do that. So having that culturally discussed through the lens of an MBTI, I don't know would happen otherwise within an organization. So I think it injects tolerance and grace into an organization's culture.
I love that. I love the tolerance and the grace that you shared. And as somebody who also stresses out about too many emails, I totally relate to that example. Joel, last question, same to you. What's that one thing that you would want somebody to know about the power of doing personality assessments in the workplace?
I'll totally agree with Deb and Jeannie Ann. I would add to that empowerment. I think the empowerment it gives somebody to be able to know themselves, to know others around them, and to be able to take those cues. A salesperson, even when somebody parks and comes into the office, can read pretty quickly what their client is like. And we all like to be served the way we like, in what quadrant we are. And so we can serve others a lot better if we ourselves know and use the tool. And so I think it empowers us, allows us to have better conversations. It allows us to be more successful because you don't have to walk through all the ups and downs that a lot of people have to by just running into a situation haphazardly, and you can be a lot more calculated. And so I think as a person, it gives a person a lot more stability and ability to walk forward in a very stable way.
And what a powerful gift that is, especially for those of us who have some anxiety about conflict and unknown situations. So it's pretty powerful. Well, I'd like to turn the chair a little bit here and open this up for anyone who is participating in the webinar. If you have a question about assessments or a question specifically for one of our panelists, feel free to come off of mute, or you can type it in the chat. We'll be monitoring that. But what questions do you all have about personality assessments in the workplace? It's always fun to wait and see who's going to be the brave one to ask the first question. I have been monitoring the chat, and I've noticed a couple of folks just sharing their own experiences and their own awareness of their personality type and how that's impacted the workplace. So I love seeing that. I do, while you all are thinking of your questions, I do just want to quickly share with you, because we've been talking so much today about personality assessments. Those aren't the only types of assessments that we offer through Workforce Solutions. And, as Deb and Joel and Jeannie Ann all indicated, when you are interested in bringing these personality assessments into your organization, it's really beneficial to have an outsider that can come in to facilitate the workshop to understand those personality types after the tests are done. And so Deb does that for us with DISC, and we have also facilitators for MBTI. But at Workforce Solutions, we do other assessments as well. We have tools that we can help your organization do 360-degree feedback assessments, which can be super powerful, particularly for leadership. We also offer some different technical aptitude workshops that we can help you develop specifically for your organization, as well as the work keys assessment. So there's a lot of things that we can do to help your organization, either through the personality assessments or some of these other ones, to create that awareness level and workshop those within your organization. And then last thing I want to just mention and give a little plug to, and I think Carlene wanted to share, but we have an event coming up that we're hosting both at our Middletown campus and our Fauquier campus, which is Leadercast. And this is the largest one-day leadership event in the country. And we've been offering it for many years. And this year's theme is the one thing. And we've got 10 leaders who will be rebroadcasting from the live event their answer to what is that one thing you need in leadership. And Carlene was sharing with me that one of those speakers, Andy Stanley, in his talk speaks specifically to some of the things that our panelists were sharing with us today. Carlene, I don't know if you wanted to jump in and add to that.
Sure, yeah. I mean, Andy Stanley's always just spot on for Leadercast, and we're just super excited that he spoke again this year. I had the opportunity to attend the live event, and he really talks about the idea of focusing on your strengths. And I put a quote in the chat that I just thought was so powerful. He said, my fully exploited strengths are of far greater value to my organization than my marginally improved weaknesses. And one of the things that he talked about as to why people can't seem to activate that level of focus is that they don't know what their strengths are. And so I think having assessments of this type, they're not about highlighting your weaknesses or telling you what you're not good at or anything like that. It really is a great problem solving and conflict resolution type. At least for me, that's what it has been, because I'm the accidental mess maker. In case you guys missed it, I raised my hand when Jeannie Ann was talking about that, because that is what I do. And it's all meant in, as she said, it comes from a pure good wellspring within me, but it barrels through like a bull in a china shop. And so I've learned to really sort of constrain that in a lot of different ways and minimize that collateral damage. And so, I think just having the opportunity to kind of absorb these sorts of things through an event like Leadercast is really, really important. I mean, it gives you the opportunity to consider what is your one thing. And the speakers were fantastic. I highly, highly recommend this. Of course, you'll get to hear Andy Stanley. This is a rebroadcast. I just want to be clear about that. These people will not be at our campus. It is a rebroadcast, but we have a really super fun day planned for it. And hoping that you can join us. If you can't make either one of those dates, we also have virtual passes where you can watch it at your own pace. So if there's anything in you that needs to be fed right now as a leader, this is the way to do it. So I just wanted to give that plug. I also noticed somebody asked, does LFCC offer these services? And absolutely we do. We can offer any of these assessments at your organization. And as Jalise said, whatever the instrument is that you want to use, or if you want to have even a consultation to figure out which instrument to use, we can certainly help you do that. And even kind of hone in on what are the goals, what are you hoping to achieve? We do those needs assessments as a consultation that's, free to use. So yes, absolutely. And then there is a question from Brandy Day that I think one of you guys ought to take. It says, what kind of resistance have you gotten from staff about participating in assessments, and how did you handle that?
Well, maybe I'll start. I'll say that, when you stop and think about it and you haven't encountered it before, there are reasons why you would be concerned, because somebody's trying to dig in. Why do you want to dig into my life and know about me? And so it can be a little scary. But I have never had anybody that after they have taken it, that haven't seen it as a huge benefit and a help, and been very grateful for it. So I would say that explaining it up front, that it can be a little bit scary. It does take a little bit of time, but the goal here is for us to know you better, and for you to know us better. So it's not just that we learn about the new people coming in, but it's allowing them to see our profile or our profiles as well. So it's a good communication tool in that way. So it's not scary at all. It's very helpful.
And one thing I love
think
about what you guys do is you put these things on the door of the offices in your organization. So before you even walk through the threshold of someone's office, you're reminded of who they are and how you want to approach them. And I just think that's a great way to kind of set the stage for any sort of even just casual conversation, because you'll see it.
It's true.
Yeah, I echo what Carlene said, and I think that's a great point, Joel, that it can feel scary, but it's also an opportunity for building trust, because everyone is participating in it. And so you're all being vulnerable and sharing that. We have another question that just came up in the chat. So this is from Vanessa, and she says, I coordinate the community leadership program at the top of Virginia Regional Chamber, and I'm wondering which tool the panelists feel would work best to use for 25 class members that are all coming from different work environments, but will be together in the class for one full day each month for 9 months.
So I'm going to be a little selfish here. I've taken the MBTI before, but you know, I'm gonna put a plug in for DISC, because I've had folks attend. I've had my own leadership teams attend members the program that Vanessa is referencing through the chamber, and they've walked away from, and it's a great program. But they do work together for 9 months. I know that we're focused on building a team, but I think that the information is very memorable and can be taken back to their organizations too, but also help to navigate the conversations that take place during the CLP training in understanding each other. And I know that the folks that work in our organization that have gone through CLP have kept in touch with other individuals that could be used as mentors. So I would take the advice, honestly, I love this, but I would take Charlene's advice and say, you know, have a consultation, Vanessa, and talk about what outcomes you want to have for the group, because they are so diverse. Do you want that? How do you want to play that out in the CLP? Do you want to focus on the participants together and take it back, or do you want to focus on the individual?
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that, Deb. And Carlene just dropped in the chat. We do something very similar through Workforce Solutions. We have our Leadership Institute program, which takes folks from different organizations. It's a cohort program that meets once a month for 11 months. So very similar to what you're doing. And we use MBTI in that. So I do think that you probably can't go wrong with either one. The key is really to make sure you have someone who's a strong facilitator and understands whichever assessment you choose to help the individuals understand their types and the power of that. I don't know, Jeannie Ann or Joel, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I just bluff, bottom line up first, start with the end in mind. And whatever that end is, I think that will lead you down the trail of which instrument is best suited. For us, I agree, they're both awesome, and I do love them both. I'm actually DISC certified as well, but for what we're using interdependently in our organization, MBTI just gives us some additional gears that we're able to latch onto that I'm sure DISC could as well. So for that reason, but I agree with Deb for what you've shared. I'd probably lean toward DISC as well.
Yeah, and I would say that it's very, very much a personal preference and what you want to read out of it. And typically one or the other is a little easier for some people to understand and to go through. For me, the DISC is like a quick, easy one to grab, and you can go very deep or you can stay very general. So, you know, I think your audience and whoever's analyzing it, the one will speak a little clearer than maybe the other one will, and so I think it's purely just a personality for people just to personal preference is really where it comes down to. We use a different one than for hiring, and they tell you something a little bit different, a little easier to on a different strain. So I think it just comes down to what do you want to read and see.
I also want to address, Helen dropped into the chat. She requested the link to sign up for Leadercast. So Carlene's dropped that in there. Helen and anyone else who might be interested in registering for Leadercast. I also just wanted to share with you all, if you are interested in more information about MBTI, DISC, or any of the other assessments that we can help bring to your organization or facilitate workshops for, we have contact information on the screen. You can reach out to Larry Baker, who's our sales manager, or Carlene Hurdle, our director of corporate training. They'd be happy to answer any questions you have, do an assessment with you, and just talk about those options. And I see we just have 1 minute left. So I just want to, from the bottom of my heart, extend my thanks and appreciation to Jeannie and Deb and Joel for taking the time out of your busy workday to share your knowledge and your passion for these assessments and share these real world experiences that you've seen, and just demonstrating to us what really servant leadership looks like and how you care about your folks and their development and the teamwork and collaboration. So thank you for that. And for those of you who have joined us, we thank you for your time and participation. We will be sending out a link with the recording to this. So if you have a colleague or a friend that you think would benefit from hearing about this, they can listen to the playback afterwards as well. And we just thank you all so much for your time and wish you a good rest of your Wednesday. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye,
Julie.
everyone.